Hi, she's Trixie, I'm Sarah, and this is our Yarn World, a place where we come to share our joy for the yarn crafts and what it provides for us in a form of peace in a really, really tough time.
Yeah.
And just the joys that it brings even before COVID was a thing. We are doing a tag today. Tag You're It. Let's talk crochet hooks.
Yeah.
We're crocheters. I am also a knitter, but crocheting is probably right now my preferred yarn time spender, I guess I should say. I don't really know. I get into moods. It's like, am I in my knitting mood or my crocheting mood? And for a while I've been in a crocheting mood. So this felt really fitting. This week I have been extremely busy. My cat got neutered this week. This weekend I had a conference that took place all weekend. I've been reading books on potty training and been a part of a lot of Bible studies. And I'm trying to keep up and get caught back up over the conference weekend. And so I have not made any real progress on any of my projects, despite the fact that she's already finished a blanket. Again.
I will show that next week.
So
we're going to do this today.
So she's graced me with being able to do something related without having to actually have any fruits of our labor.
Well, I've been watching a lot of these videos where the people are talking about their crochet hooks and the 10 questions and Cinnamon Stitches, Jennifer from Cinnamon Stitches, she tagged anybody who crochets. So that qualifies us and anybody who crochets that has a channel. And I'm going to say that's what we're going to do also. Anybody who crochets that has a channel, go ahead and follow along. Tag You're It. So, our first question today is, what is your favorite brand of crochet hook? My favorite brand has always been Boy. I grew up using that, and I think that's one of my favorites. But yeah, I'm pretty much a Boy hook person.
Yeah, I grew up on Boy and Susan Bates, but I feel like I am more accustomed to Boy hooks in general, just based on their shape, based on their color.
The colors are good too.
Well, not in the rainbow in the sense of like the colors that they chose, but I actually more know the hook size based off of the colors, because their colors do not change depending on what sort of because they do have their own like crochet hooks of like this year or this fall or whatever. They have their standards, their standard aluminums, but then they also have special collections. But their colors I think generally stay the same, so it's like, oh, I need the yellow one, or oh, I need this one. I almost remember colors more than I do size hooks, because when I started crocheting I was a kid, and so colors were easier to remember than understanding the whole sizing then. So I grew accustomed to the Boy color scheme than the Susan Bates, so that's more where I'm going with this.
Our favorite hook size, that's question number 2. I think my favorite size is K. I really like the K hook. I like the bigger hooks.
I like H's. Yeah, it's an H, right?
Well, and my favorite color is pink, and I guess that's where I went with that too. K, I believe the K is the pink one. So that matters to me, and that is what draws me to things as well.
Yeah, my favorite, she's always chosen her favorite color hooks, which have always been in that size range for both, I think, Boy and Susan Bates. But with me, I've always, most of my crafts have been in the H, which is size 5mm. Most of my crafts require that because I'm always using acrylic yarn only, and one strand. So a lot of time, because she uses K, she's doubling up on her acrylics,
Yep.
making them more 8-weighted yarn. So I never do that generally.
Right.
I did when I was younger, but I'm just accustomed to my regular yellow. My second favorite would probably be G, which is the 4.25 millimeter, which is the red. And so, you know,
That'll be the question later.
well, ketchup and mustard.
There you go. That's true. That is so cool. Okay. Number 3. Do we prefer tapered or inline? Well, being that it's boy, it would be tapered. I know that Susan Bates is inline, and I have used those as well, but I always go back to the boy.
I would agree. I like the tapered. I have always noticed that with the difference between Susan Bates and boy. I never knew that it had a name to it. I just always thought that that was kind of like their shape differences, like as in style. I didn't realize that that was an actual term, if that makes sense. Like, you know, you have different people that do things just a different way, but you never really realize that there's like a fashion name for it, or like a standardized like shape.
Yeah.
I just never even thought of it. But yeah, I've always thought that the Susan Bates, like the inline, was always a little in my head. Depending on the project, I'm always like, can I find one that is more inlined? Or can I find one that's more tapered, because I feel like it's gonna benefit the project. Like, there are some projects that inline actually works a little better because it's more inclined to stay hooked.
Exactly. Yeah.
It grabs on a little bit more defined.
Right.
But when you're in a groove, you need that very, very easy, smooth, tapered.
Right.
Like, it seems almost useless to have an inline, but it's all what you prefer.
Yeah. Okay. How do we grip our hook? Pencil or knife? That's number 4. I do
Knife.
I hold mine the knife style.
Yeah, me too. I can't say for sure that the person who taught me, I think my grandma might have actually been pencil. I'm not for sure. I just always did it this way because this is what felt comfortable and natural. So.
I have tried to do pencil. I just can't get it.
I can do it, but it takes me longer because it's not, it doesn't come by me naturally.
Yeah, it's not a natural thing for me either. Number 5, does the style of hook dictate how you crochet?
Oh.
I would think that if you had different types of yarn, you would want a different type of hook. I always use 4-ply and sometimes double it up, so I preferred the tapered for that. But I would think that if you were using a wool or a different type of yarn, that you would want a different type of hook to go with that.
I understand what you're saying. When I was referring to it earlier based on hook differences and shapes, I was actually referring to what I'm making, because most of the time if I'm like making an aragurumi, or if I'm making something that actually has a shape, like a 3D shape to it.
Right.
Sometimes I need something where it's like, if I'm pulling through, I need to know that I'm not going to lose that yarn. And it's not really based off of the material of the yarn, whether it's grippy or not. It's more based off of the angles I have to go in at.
See, and that's why it's so important that we all know these things, right? That's why these questions are out there, is so that we all learn from each other.
Yeah, I would say that if you're used to aluminum hooks in general, having both, even if you prefer one over the other, I think that having a set of both Boys and Susan Bates will serve you well based on what you do. If you're only ever doing one thing and you've already found a hook that works for you, you don't have to. Right. But for someone like me that goes from making household normals like pillows and blankets to going to making arigurumis and more 3D projects, it's a little different. I have to have flexible tools that work with my craft. So
that works. Number 6, do you prefer ergonomic or regular hooks. For me, I usually would use, and I still do, the regular hooks. But just recently, I have bought some ergonomic hooks, and they're not they're not clover or furls or anything like that, but they're called Be Crafty, with 2 E's at the end. And they're just and I bought the whole set for very inexpensive, and they're very nice. They've got the handle on them, and what I was finding was with the regular hooks was that I was getting a cramp in my pinky from where it was hitting right here, and with these I can crochet a lot longer, and it doesn't do that. So I think maybe it's because I'm growing older and my hands are doing a craft that is using my hands more, that I need that thicker handle, and maybe that's going to be my preferred from now on. Also, these because when I ordered them, I was studying up on them, and it has the longer
the grip goes
the longer
higher.
head. So I'm able to get my loops on there, and it's easier for me because I do get a lot of loops on there. And then because I do half double crochet a lot, I end up having to put 3 loops on and then carry another loop over to pull through. I need that space. That's the type of crocheter I am. So I need that space for this. Otherwise, a lot of the hooks ergonomic come clear up to this space, and I wouldn't be able to do that.
I just thought of something. Another reason why it might be that way for you is because you're holding it like a knife.
Yeah.
I just realized that people who probably hold it like this, they probably want it closer.
Yeah, they probably do.
So the grip being lowered down probably makes more sense.
Yeah.
They probably have the grip at different lengths of the crochet hook based on the style in which you're holding it.
That may be true, but this works for me.
Yeah.
So what do you prefer?
I've grown accustomed to my regular. I don't have any issue against
The
ergonomic at all. I think I've used them in the past. I do feel like I've had ones with a thicker handle, not necessarily rubber or anything like that, anything special like silicone. I think mine have always been plastic handles, they're just thicker than the actual base. I have no problem. They feel a little unnatural in the hand, because when you get so accustomed to a smaller tool, like a thinner tool, having something more thicker, it doesn't feel like it's going to be able to do the same job.
It takes a little more time to get used to.
But because the top is the regular size, it can, obviously. But it's almost like muscle memory, what your hand is accustomed to compared to what it can get, what it's better for it.
Yes, that's true.
My thing is that with my I do know what you're talking about. My hand does fatigue.
Yeah.
Over time.
Yes.
And I could imagine that would alleviate it. That it wouldn't have to have as much of a tighter or more defined grip on it. It would be a lot more relaxed. But this hand is the one that actually gets me because of how tight I'm holding the yarn. My finger, because of the way that I wrap my yarn, actually gives out quicker than my other hand.
Yeah,
so I guess for me, it's a little different. Not that my crochet hand has not given out on me before, but for where I am right now in this journey, regulars are the way that I'm going to go.
Yeah. Number 7, what are your thoughts on light up hooks? I have never tried them, so I have no opinion.
I've never tried them, but for someone whose eyes takes in light in a very negative way, I can't imagine that would be fun. I feel like I'd be too focused on the hook itself. I I have never heard anything bad about them personally.
Right.
I know that you had read up on some reviews, but every single time I see it, I always think that it's gonna almost like whitewash the project, in the sense that when there's a light beaming down on your project, you still have definition over
you
where
can see more of the project.
you can see more of the project, but there's still shadows. You can see the individual stitches. You can see where you're supposed to go in. Whereas I feel like if you're literally flashing light on the yarn,
Just that one stitch, it's not going to help you.
You wouldn't be able to really see where you're supposed to go in, or you would be more. Your eyes would naturally focus on the light than the project.
Yes.
And I feel like that would almost wear out your eyes, especially if you're trying to do this at night with your partner in the other right next to you, and you're trying to do that so that you're not having a bigger light on. I feel like in the end, your eyes would almost get so drained, you wouldn't be able to feel happy doing your project. I think that they're not a bad. I don't think that they're a bad invention. Because this is coming from someone who does not receive, my eyes receive too much light at times. For people who don't have that problem, or have prescription glasses that can cancel that out, like blue light filters and stuff like that. I mean, that's not a blue light filter, but a blue light, but you know what I mean. It might not affect them. It might be what they need. I feel like it targets a certain audience. Right. And we might just not be that audience.
I've heard from other YouTubers that talk about this light up hooks, that they prefer to have the ones that go over the shoulder that light up the project a lot better, and they're more satisfied.
Too.
Yeah, they're more satisfied with those.
Yeah, and that just sounds like a better idea in my head too.
Number 8. Have you ever used a hook with interchangeable heads? I have not.
I guess I should redefine, because I told my mom that I have for knitting. Okay. I have not for crochet.
Yeah, crochet.
I know
I have never.
I know for crochet you can too. And I think my husband has looked at doing that for me before. When I did it for knitting, it was for circular needles. The circular portion had different lengths. Right. The margin in between the hooks had different lengths that you could have, and you could screw needle heads into it based on how big you needed that margin to be. Right. And I had some issues with them based off of the material in which the margin was used on, regardless of whether it would stay screwed in. Yeah. Because the material was a really weird, like, rubber. And you know how it's like a book that has that sticker on it, that price sticker on it, and sometimes it doesn't peel off clean, and it has that sticker residue. Yeah, yeah. Those would wear, it would wear like that, and you would feel the rubber almost like it wasn't fully melting, but it was, so it was causing the finish on the top to come off, and you were being left with grippy.
That doesn't work for me.
And so it would tear and like snag on the yarn. Yeah. And I think it's just because they were an older set and they were hand-me-downs to me. Right. And so their time had ended a long time ago, and I was still using them because I was getting into knitting, and I was accepting anything that anyone was giving me. Right. But I would imagine that, to be honest, for a traveling crocheter, I think that the benefit of having an interchangeable head set wouldn't be a bad idea.
If you're only working on one project, because you only have one base and all the heads. Yeah. You can only work on one project.
Well, that's granted. You're right with that. If you had a couple of extra heads, maybe a couple of sets, I feel like
the heads wouldn't be the problem. It would be the bases. You'd have to get more bases.
Well, yes. Yeah. But I'm just referring to, I feel like that would travel less. That would be more efficient for traveling. Maybe. I mean, these are just as thin. You can just throw so many in.
Not that heavy either.
But I feel like in some ways it's a minimalistic approach to it. I think my issue is that depending on how they click in, they would unscrew.
while you're doing it. Yeah.
I've had that happen with my knitting ones. I feel like that would happen with this. Just over at the time of yarning over or doing something, it just starts to move.
Yeah.
Small. I'm not sure if I would ever invest in one.
I don't think I would. Okay, number 9. Do you like projects that require small stainless steel hooks or larger hooks? I have had them, but I have never used the small stainless steel hooks. I prefer the larger hooks. I do bigger projects. I do blankets. I do mostly blankets. But I do other things that will require bigger hooks. And using 4-ply, you can use those bigger hooks and it still works. So that's what I use.
I feel like I've used them before in the past. Maybe not for their intended purposes, but I have. I feel like I don't necessarily... My preference is based off of my project, I guess. So whatever my mind's focused on. And there have been some projects that have intrigued me in using them. I feel like metal hooks are my preferred. I've had plastic hooks in the past.
No, this is the stainless steel or the larger?
I understand. What I'm referring to is I feel like... I know that they're really... I know the question's more directing towards size, and I understand that. But I feel like no matter what, I would gravitate to metal hooks no matter what the project.
Yeah, I like metal hooks too.
And I feel like even though the metal, the stainless steel ones are a little bit more like they feel industrial in some way.
They're tiny.
They're so tiny, but they're still heavy in a way. They have weight to them. It's really about the project, because if I'm if I'm really invested in a project, I'm going to use anything I can to actually do it. My thing is that I'm always going to go towards metal hooks. So I feel like when the question is stainless steel or a larger hooks when I already use aluminum, it feels like a weird a thing. Right now, I guess I'd say larger, just because that's what my projects have been. But I have seen projects that I'm interested in doing that require stainless steel that are not just doily stuff. So, and it's about the detail. I've been doing a lot of things that require detail, and those hooks would allow me to do more detail work into my already...
You could do dream catchers, you could do mandalas.
Yep.
There's a whole bunch of reasons.
So, yeah, I guess in some way I say larger just because I've been doing it. That's what I'm using. But I feel like I really don't have a preference. It's based on the project for me.
Exactly.
So I guess that's kind of an open-ended question.
And number 10, if you were allowed to only use 2 hooks for the rest of your life, what size and brand would they be? I would like to say that I would probably, let's see, my preferred would be, the size would be K or L. I like both of those. And I would probably use or the ergonomic Be Crafty, this is the L. So K and L in the tapered.
Tapered, ketchup and mustard. The red is a G, which is a 4 1/4 millimeter, and the other one, the gold, is an H, 5 millimeter. These are probably my most used hooks.
Yeah.
Since I've started, I've always had red or yellow or gold hooks in my project bag because these are the ones I use the most. So I know, like when I was looking in her bag, I was like, oh, what are the colors I use the most? These are the ones. They just are.
Yeah.
So I would honestly have to say these ones. My ketchup and mustard.
Yeah. And those are the questions. So,
you should probably put those in the description for anyone who would like to.
And I will. And also, Again, we're going to just tag anybody who has a channel, a crochet channel, that would like to participate in this tag along.
I feel like I should have actually checked. I feel very weird to pull up my phone right now and check, and if you've already done this, I apologize, but one of my favorite crochet channels is Fiber Spider.
Yeah.
And if you by any chance you're watching, you should do this. I'd watch it.
Hey, and make sure that you comment if you're doing it, because we'd like to hear it.
Yeah.
So that would be really cool.
And again, we're just doing this tag in the spirit of the craft. You know, we see everyone else doing it, and it's a very interesting set of questions. For anyone who would like us to do questionnaires more often, regardless of whether they be tags or just Q&As, we're more than willing to do more of these videos. Our regular plans today would have been doing a regular episode, but based on my lack of getting stuff done this week, was such a busy week, we just decided that we were going to still make this a productive episode by doing this tag.
And in the future, hopefully soon, Sara will have her Notions bag done.
Yes.
I got a new Notions bag. I was able to gift her my old one.
Yes.
And then when she gets that together, we will share our Notion bags with you. And that will be a nice episode as well, because we like to do different things in our bags. So that will be a fun one too.
For sure. That will be something happening very soon,
Yeah.
because I am super excited to have that bag. I am currently in search of all my needles in my tin, because I've been cleaning my craft room, and it just happened to walk off somewhere. And
it might not be that it walked off on its own. I mean, you do have 2 small children.
Well, that's what happened to the pink pouch, the thing that you gave me, because they had it and they were putting all their mini toys in it and just carrying it around, and they were fighting over it. Nothing, they didn't hurt it, but I do remember taking it away from them. I have to grab those 2 things and start packing it with my essentials, because based on what she does compared to what I do, it's completely different.
Well, and it's so nice to have them, just to throw them into your project bag, and when you're out of the house, you've got everything you need.
Yeah, I never even thought about that. I know that sounds dumb, but I grew up in the era where my mom has always been a perfectionist, not a perfectionist, I should say, but a very organized person. You have to have everything, and she has the purse that has literally every single pocket for every single purpose and every single thing and every single cubby. And she she even has purses that have secret pockets.
Yeah.
And in my head, I just need a bag. Like, just give me a something that opens so I can put something inside it. I grew up where you organized it by, you just remember where things are based off of where you remember you threw it in a corner.
That's funny.
Well, but that's true. Growing up, that was the style that I grew up with. You pretty much were carrying a duffel bag with you everywhere.
Well,
and I grew up in that.
I like knowing that I have everything I need when I walk out of the house.
I know it sounds dumb. Here, I know this is like a dumb example. I actually am using this as a study bag right now, but I'm just gonna take stuff out of it real quick and show you. This bag it's a purse. I've been putting all my study books in there just because of one place to grab it all. But this bag is literally just that.
It's a cavern.
And this is a small version. Most of the time, all my bags are like a full-on duffel bag with a flap, and it doesn't have any sort of order. It's literally just that. It's a cavern, and I grew up with that being normal. And so her having and every single time I see anyone your age, and it's not an age thing. It's literally what you grew up with.
Yeah.
Compared to
just
what
like
I do. And so the idea of having a smaller case that has everything already, so if I throw my project in and it's already secured, if I just throw that other bag in, everything's done. Yeah. I don't require this bag that requires me to have everything in there because the idea of having a bag like that where everything's in its own place, I would not be able to tell whether I had everything because I would have to check every single hole to make sure that everything was in everything.
Right.
And so for me, it's, instead of feeling that I have to put everything in there, it's just more, I put this in here, I put this in here, I put this in here, I put this in here. I don't have to organize it. It's in there and I go.
Yeah.
And so the idea of having to maintain all those pockets is like it's just one pocket.
Right.
I have one pocket bags.
For me, I like knowing that everything is in its place, and I've got everything I need, and that's what this new
you know where to find it.
My new Notions bag is also very organized.
Yeah.
But it's I can put it in my project bag and I can go. Mm-hmm. And I know I got everything that I need. And if I think of anything else that I would possibly need, I could put it in there. But I think I've got everything that I personally use already in this bag. And so I don't have to worry that, well, I'm going to run out of this, I'm going to run out of that, because I've got more in my Notions bag.
Yeah,
so,
it's just good to have.
And so when she gets hers together, we're gonna do an episode for that. And for now, I think that we are done with this one. Do you have any kind of memory verse or Bible verse that you want to add? You've been studying a lot more than
I've been studying more, but the issue is that it's been a very specific study, and I don't really, it's not, and I've been getting my Rhema moments, so to speak.
Right. Those are always great.
But nothing that I feel the need to share necessarily. All I can say is that if you want a good Bible study, I highly suggest, this is called Elijah. So like the prophet Elijah, it's Faith and Fire by Priscilla Shirer. She's the woman, if you don't know her name by recognition, she's the woman that plays in War Room, the main actress.
Yeah.
The one that learns how to pray. That's her.
Yeah.
And she has videos that go along with this Bible study that, depending on where you're at, you can order for yourself, or if you're in a church that might be interested in doing this, you can get, I do believe, at a church discount for a group session. But
she's also Tony Evans' daughter. If you guys listen to him on Moody Radio, he's very prolific pastor. I love listening to him, and she is his daughter.
And my other Bible study is going through Psalms 37. So let me make sure that that's the right Psalms. Yep, 30. Yep, Psalms 37. I really highly suggest both of them. It's really talking about, we really don't have a lot of time, but it's really just more on being willing to put what God deems as important first. Sometimes we have to set aside the things that we view as important for a time to let God be able to use us. The way that I've been seeing it has been how God's been kind of giving me the image is, the Bible talks about us being a vessel. When He's pouring in the water, sometimes we have things that we treasure. And as a vessel, we want to protect them. So the image has come to me as geodes.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so like we're a vase or a vessel.
Yeah.
And our treasures we hide inside ourselves. We value them.
Yeah.
And they're like, and I've had the image of geodes. We put the geodes in there. Well, God is trying to fill us up, and He can still fill us up with the geodes, but based on the fact that they take up volume, we can't be filled up with the most capacity of Him if we're filling up ourselves with treasures that are not going to get us farther.
Right.
he wants us to give. So it speaks a lot into Elijah, because there's a lot of talk about water because of what his involvement with the punishment of Israel had to do with a drought,
right.
and how he could control. He had the reins of when the water was to come back to the earth at the time.
Right.
But it was almost in the essence of, if you want to be fully used by God, you have to know when to give up what you deem as important. And a lot of people are just like, well, that could be maybe a sin in your life. And yes, it could be. It could be a stronghold in your life that you need to give up to God to be able to get over it. But some things are not a sin. They're just something that God's just like, I need you to be a vessel to be able to bear this water, bear whatever this is, to be able to give to someone else. And if you're not willing to get used to the weight of this water to be able to walk in my glory, because you're so used to this other presence, you're not going to be able to get where and be used the way that I want you to be used.
Sure.
And so it's this whole aspect of, that's the image that's been coming into my head as I've been going into this, as he's going, if we're willing, he will take those out. Not completely. It's not a sin. If they're not sins, it's not a bad thing. Like some people, it's softball. It could be a sport. For us, it could be right now. I'm not saying that this is what he's asking me to do, but it could be setting a time aside that I would normally be using for my crochet.
Right.
Putting his needs first to allow me to be used in the way that he needs me to be used right now. I have the ability to be used by him with these things, but right now I might not be needed in that way.
Right.
And just being willing to be used by God.
Right.
And being willing to be shared. It's the whole idea that the vine or a branch could have 8 blossoms, but an expert gardener can cut them down to 3, and they would bear more fruit with the 3 than they would with the 8.
Right.
Not saying that all 8 of those blossoms were beautiful, but it's based on their harvest would not, they would not be able to pour out as much as they could. The 8 blossoms could turn into fruit, but they would be small and they wouldn't be as luscious as the 3.
Right.
As much as you would be able to give into those 3. As much time as you would be able to actually benefit to those had you had split all your time up to those 8.
Right.
And that's, does that make sense?
Yeah, and for me, that's the first thing I do in the morning is I do my Bible study. I take my time with God. I spend it very purposely to do that because I need that time with Him alone. Mm-hmm. And I take as long as I need. I have the Bible and I have 2 other books that I glean from, and I write in my journal, and I write down everything that is meat to me, and it makes me prepared for the day. Yeah. And I feel so much better when I have that in me to go throughout my day. Yeah. So it just doesn't come by naturally, and for anyone who this sounds weird, it's because it's coming from the carnal. It does not sound like something that is necessary to do. But if you want to get farther with your walk with God, there are some things that you have
they
to
might
make
not
it a habit.
Well, it's not necessarily a habit. You have to be willing to, at any point, give up anything for Him. And it doesn't mean you have to give up your family. He's not asking you to give up things that you were called to be a part of. Like you're right. For me, I'm not called to give up my children because they're taking up my time. No. I was still called to be a mother. Right. It's just more of, if I know that they're going to take up most of my time, then I need to start making more time to wake up earlier if I want to actually get my time in with Him. Yes. It's the sacrifices of, I might be getting an extra hour of sleep, but it's the whole, if I get that hour of God, I probably am going to act better than having that extra hour of sleep than to have His grace throughout the day. Right. Already been filled up. I would not have to feel responsible of being my own fuel. Well, and He can give you peace throughout the day that you wouldn't have gotten just by sleeping that hour. Yeah, so, the whole tithe, it's the whole, I would rather know that by giving the 10%, God would bless the 90 than me expecting that I would know how to handle the 100 on my own.
Exactly.
So it's just the whole, and I know that might not make sense to others if that's a completely different topic, but it's just the whole, if you make God important, He's going to make your values, your ambitions, your passions important. But right now, if He wants to be able to get you farther, sometimes we have to set those aside. They might not be a sin, but we have to set them aside just to make sure that they're not an idol in our life. Of something that we give more glory to, and giving us this false sense of joy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I talk about every single time I open this up, the joy that yarn craft gives to us. Yeah. I always see it as a means of God giving us this ability of an outlet. In my head, that's how I say it, because it's a God-given joy.
And it's a talent that He gave us that we're not supposed to ignore.
Yeah. But I don't tell the yarn, thank you for this. I tell God, thank you for giving me the yarn.
And
it's
the talent.
So it's just
and the talent that He gave us.
So, I don't know. Again, I didn't really have an utterance. That's just what I've been doing my Bible study in. Psalms 37 has a lot to say about that too. It's been really interesting how the conference and our pastors preaching and then these two Bible studies really have been pretty much all the same message, just said from a different point of view.
So it's a rhema word all the way around.
But it's been for me. I've not really felt in the need to give it out to anyone else, but if you're interested, I really suggest the Elijah by Priscilla, Shirer. Reading Psalms 37, and where in the Gospels it talks about the gardener and the branch.
Okay.
I probably could find the verse and have her take it down.
Yeah.
So right now we were trying to make this a very shorter video, but it's already at 40 minutes because we don't seem to know how to do anything other than that.
Once we talk about God, we want you to understand as well.
Yeah, so we thank you for joining us today. We really enjoyed it. We hope that you enjoyed this tag as well. If you would like us to be a part of any more tags or have any more questions, we would be more than happy to make more videos like this.
Yes.
But until next time, we ask you to stay safe and stitch your way
to mental health.